and we will get going. No, actually 2 seconds. Okay. Whatever it needs to be to invite people. Okay. All right, guys. The purpose of the Launch Mastermind is really to bring people together that are encountering the same stuff, right? That are have similar goals or at similar learning levels, production levels, likely experience levels, and kind of taking some of the things they're doing really well, some of the things they might be struggling with, and help them through whatever challenges they're facing, and to share ideas with each other so that ultimately we can share the things we've learned, whether they be positive or negative. And ideally, I mean, I know this feels a little bit more instructional, but my job as kind of the facilitator of the mastermind is just kind of, lead the ebb and flow of the discussion. So I'd love for this to be as interactive as possible. Okay. When no one wants to talk, I ain't got a problem talking, as you guys have probably figured out. Okay. Even Melody laid into me this week. Man, that was hard to hear. All right. What do you guys want to talk about?
Contracts.
Contracts.
We can start anywhere.
Okay.
Contracts.
Let's hear from Rhonda and from John, and then we'll try to cover the primary things. What is on your mind right now, guys?
For me, just again, about 2 weeks starting out, the biggest thing for me, and I'm sure for everyone, is really lead generation, is establishing that first marketing plan, finding out what works, what doesn't work, the costs of each, the cost benefit of each. So that for me is becoming my biggest priority right now. I'm fairly confident with the other items coming from the corporate world, like fairly okay with some other issues, but it's that lead generation aspect of it for me is my what I really need to focus on greatly.
All right, cool. Rhonda?
I am looking for some direction on DocuSign, how to learn where to start. I know there's like 40,000 YouTube videos. I think there's some stuff in Command. There's a lot of different places. I don't know if it's changed since MegaCamp. Things should
no,
they're updated.
There really shouldn't be any changes from MegaCamp. Just
Okay.
because it's not DocuSign is not a KW technology that they're constantly improving on Command.
Okay.
DocuSign is just it is a third-party tool, but they agreed to the data pledge that we wanted them to agree to, which is that we have access to the data and they don't. Basically, they can't use the data for their needs. They agreed to our data pledge. That's why we went through the trouble of leaving Dotloop to go to DocuSign in the first place.
Right.
Dotloop we had a special deal with to protect our data, and then ultimately they were bought by Zillow. And when that agreement ended, we asked them to continue to honor their agreement, and they said no. So we cut ties with DocuSign. Sorry, Dotloop.
Right.
Okay. Right. There is a in Command with Sam, as we've talked about before, is a fantastic resource. I'm looking at 10 videos, 11 videos actually. Intro to transition to DocuSign, connecting Command and DocuSign, creating your own templates, creating a test contact, creating an opportunity, sending documents, compliance, submitting offers, commissions tab. That, in my opinion, is going to be the best resource for DocuSign.
Okay.
And then a little trial and error and playing around with it a little bit. Okay, John, I want to answer your question in a bit of a more philosophical way. and then probably the majority of today we'll probably talk about contracts. Okay.
Okay, sure.
There's really we kind of only have two resources. Okay, we have our time and we have our money. Right now, every lead that has ever been procured in the history of the universe costs somebody either time and or money. Okay.
Got it.
So every lead that like clicked on a Facebook ad and then some company's trying to sell you, or a broker that says, hey, we got a relocation deal coming through, you know, one of our relationships, would you like to work this lead for 40% or whatever? Every call in from a billboard ad or any of that kind of thing, it's either derived from somebody's time, right? Cold calling or door knocking or whatever it is. And then they say, hey, we created a lead, I'll sell it to you, right? Or their money, right? I will buy certain like pay-per-clicks and these kind of things, right? So that here's the thing, if it's not your time and it's not your money, then you're going to pay the person back whose time and or money it was.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Plus some profit. So I'll use Metro Brokers, for example. Metro Brokers has those big billboards. There's no agent's telephone number on that. It's the company's telephone number and the company's website. So what are they doing? Okay, what they're doing is they're doing advertising, but they're not advertising. They're not striving to help the individual agents build their business and go find leads. They're basically becoming the middleman between the consumer and the agent that they're going to select to handle that lead.
Okay.
And there's going to be cost involved in that transfer. You think those billboards are free? Of course not.
Sure.
You think they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart? No, they're in business to make money.
Sure.
Right? I'm not smearing them. I'm just calling a spade a spade. Okay? So somebody's going to go onto metrobrokers.com and say, oh, this 123 Hill Street, this is a great house for my family. I have some questions. I'd like to see it. Right? Then they call that number and they go give them, they give that lead to an agent that's going to close the deal, or hopefully, right? By the way, if you're a brand new agent, you can't put together contracts and you don't have a ton of experience closing deals, do you think you're going to get that lead?
No, of course not.
Of course not. They're going to give it to somebody who's got the best likelihood of closing that deal.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Now, they're going to pass off that lead for 50% of the commission plus a sliding scale transaction fee, plus it's not going to count towards the cap and all kinds of other BS.
Okay.
Right. And if you want, you don't have to participate, but there's agents lining up to participate because lead generation is the toughest part of this business. And people are willing to pay for the easy button.
If it's less of my time, it's a good. It's a time benefit.
It all
analysis.
depends. It's a function of how valuable is your time,
Right.
and are you willing to spend money to solve this problem also, right? So you look at your business and you say, hey, I got an issue here. I don't have enough leads. The first thing you should be saying to yourself is, am I going to solve this problem with my time? Right? Which is, you know, door knocking, cold calling, networking, open houses, sphere of influence, any type of, kind of surprise and delighting, going out into the marketplace, helping business owners do their thing, right? Am I going to spend my shoe leather and my time doing it? Or am I going to write a check so that somebody else can make it easier for me? Y'all follow that kind of philosophically?
I do.
Okay. It's a really important concept. So here's the deal. We tend to look for ways where we can write a check.
Right.
I'm not in charge of y'all's finances, but we have a philosophy at Keller Williams, and you hopefully have a similar philosophy in your life, which is lead with revenue, right? It's very easy to write checks for things in real estate. I'm going to encourage you to do what's free or very inexpensive at the beginning.
Well, it's the whole in the MREA, the whole red light, green light
Exactly.
issue. Right.
Right. So the idea is like, what I would do, let's say an open house, you can spend $10 on balloons and some donuts. and then spend a lot of time going through the neighborhood and calling people or knocking on doors or doing a Facebook ad or something like that, that you can use some of your time to accomplish. Now, as you're building your business and you have more closings, you'll have more money in less time. And that's when you start writing checks for stuff,
Got it.
right? Like,
Understood.
my grass needs to get cut. Number one, I don't have the tools for it. I don't have the time for it. And I definitely have no interest in doing it, right? So I'm going to use my money for that one,
Sure.
right? Now, my kid just got a little guitar and she wants to learn how to play. Well, I'm going to use my time for that. I could easily write a check for somebody to, you know, teach my kid what an A chord looks like, but I want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get fulfillment from that. See what I'm saying?
Sure. Sure.
So I'm going to encourage you to look through that MREA book, and I'll tell you what page it's on. All the lead generations. Notice how quick it was to get. This
Is
is
that
like
where
the
he
playbook,
has the
y'all.
page divided by prospecting versus versus marketing? I believe early
Yeah,
on.
you know, that it's interesting. That's probably one of the only things that's kind of adjusted a little bit in this,
Oh, okay.
as I would say. They really seem to say that it's a prospecting based marketing enhanced business. No, I'm sorry. They say it the other way around. Isn't that correct?
Well, it was also written in 2003. So,
Right. I mean, nowadays, I feel like it's more of a prospecting based marketing enhanced business.
okay.
Okay. People are generally not as loyal to their customers over time. Right. And it is what it is. It's a societal trend, right? People are like, they do business with the people they like and the first people that get in front of them. Right. They don't go out of their way to like be loyal to people for the most part. Like it's, I'm not trying to minimize the deep relationships, but you got to understand this is a numbers game. If I want to go on a date tomorrow night and I ask one woman and she says no, I ain't going out. If I ask 100 women, somebody's going to say yes.
Yep.
It's just that simple. Okay, so on page let's see, lead generation, page 133. In this book, talks a little bit about all of the different types. I'm sorry, it's on page 138. 138 in the Millionaire. Oh, Evan,
That's
you're my
that's what
favorite.
I was
Oh my
referring
God,
to.
I love you.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's your red book. Oh my God, high five to you.
Cool, Ebony. Thank you.
All right, this is a list of a bunch of ways to find business.
Yep.
Right.
That's
So
exactly what I was
your job
referring
is to
to.
look through that list and say, I don't really feel like doing that. That's totally fine. Just do something different.
Okay.
Okay. If you don't want to make cold calls, fine. You want to make cold calls, all the power to you, right? There are many, many ways to make money and to have a wonderful, successful business.
Cool.
Okay. I did very, like, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but I've probably called less than 10 expireds in my whole life, and I've probably called less than 10 FSBOs in my whole life.
I'm sorry. What was the second one?
For sale by owners.
Well, FSBOs. Okay, got it.
Okay.
Got it.
But I can handle an incoming sign call like you wouldn't imagine.
Okay.
Okay. And I have probably cold called 3,000 real estate agents. So like I have my certain things I like doing.
Right.
Right. So
I'll find my avenue, I'm sure.
Yeah. But don't go call one FSBO and be like, this ain't for me.
That's right.
Right. Give it a shot.
It's not the business for that, I'm sure.
Okay.
Right.
We're all going to be stepping out of our comfort zones. Okay. We're all doing things we've not done before. And the fact of the matter is if you want a life that looks different from the life you got right now,
You gotta do different things.
you got to do something different than you've always done.
That's right.
Bill, one of the things that I'm entertaining doing is with my church. They have every Wednesday night where they read to kids. So I'm going to volunteer to read to kids because it was 70 people on that call this Wednesday. So I'm like, to me, all of that equals business. So
Wait, what church is that? I think I want to sign up for that.
Yeah, that's awesome, Ebony. Wow.
it's Eagles
Right?
Nest.
And what you gonna do? You gonna come in there with a Labs t-shirt,
Right.
KW emblem right here, right? What's KW?
Everything.
Oh,
Exactly.
KW stands for Keller Williams Realty. right? Give this to your mother and tell her to download this app.
Exactly. Like, here you go. I'm going to put it in the chat.
You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding at all.
I know you're not, but I'm trying different ways. I'm like, I'm personable. Like, that's where I win. I don't win on the phone sometimes. But
Y'all hear yesterday when Laura was talking about how she introduces one business owner to another, or what a business owner to a prospect? So she's in a bunch of these mom groups or whatever, and somebody will say, hey, I need a flooring guy. And she'll say, oh, my client, the flooring guy that I recommend to my clients is, you know, ABC Flooring. That is like such an amazingly subtle way to let people know that you have clients and you're in some business that they now have a piqued curiosity around, and by connecting two people that need to be connected. And when you tag that person, they say, oh my gosh, this woman, Laura, she's so interested in helping me build my business. I think I might help her build hers, right? So if you don't want to like call random people and be like, want to buy something? Don't. But make no bones about it. If you don't speak to people, you ain't ever going to get an appointment. And if you don't have any appointments, you ain't ever going to get paid. I wish it was different, but it ain't different. Okay? The good news is basically every single person that you see anywhere you go is somebody that you could help. Right? Like, imagine if you sold like, desk chairs. Like, what fraction of the world is interested in buying desk chairs? Right? Like, that's a hard job. We sell houses, for crying out loud. Everyone needs one of those. So I'm going to encourage you, John, to experiment with some different different types of lead generation. Hey, Heather, and to push yourself to give it 100%, and then see what kind of results you have. Do I feel like I'm making an impact when I do this? Am I having fun? Right? If you're not having fun, I mean, gosh, there's a lot of ways to do this business. You ought to be able to find something that you have fun doing.
Right. Right.
And long before you write a check to somebody that has more than 3 digits in it, right? You should go find some free business.
Cool. Okay.
That makes sense?
It absolutely does.
You gotta, I mean, we talked yesterday, you're a LinkedIn guy. Like, don't go spending money until you wear that out.
Okay.
Know what I'm saying?
Understood.
Yeah.
Great.
Now, spending money would be on things that are specific to developing those relationships, right? Like taking somebody out for lunch, or, buying them a book like The Millionaire Real Estate Investor and talking to them about their real estate investment goals. I'm not talking about spending little dollars. I'm talking about, hey, well, for, $500 a month, we can do this for you. Yeah, I bet you can. I'm just not going to do that yet. All right, Rhonda, I can't see you or hear you. What are you thinking?
I'm just all ears.
Beautiful. All right, Heather, we're about to start talking about contracts. Do you have anything that you came here today to speak about that we should talk about? Anything? Okay. And Brian, anything that you want to speak about? All right, let's jump in. We can go a lot of different directions with contracts. Talk to me a little bit about, Ebony, this was your, what do you have a specific type of contract you want to review? Do you want to look at like which contracts go with what? Like, tell me a little bit, give me some more detail if you would.
So I'm trying to dissect the purchase and sale because I want to be able to articulate it properly. I think it was the last page. Hold on. There's my book. Okay.
I'm going to pull it up while we're talking, okay?
Okay.
Keep going though.
But the last page of it, it was something that you have to sign and then send the first 6 pages and then send the last pages. I just don't understand it, and I just want to make sure I understand it. Let me pull it out. Hold on.
All right, cool. Let's talk about the purchase and sale agreement, okay? Here's some general framework, okay? When you're asked to put together an offer, here's the general framework for the offer, okay? Purchase and sale, okay? Then there's likely going to be some type of financing / cash document. That generally is either the VA loan exhibit, the FHA loan exhibit, the conventional loan exhibit, or the all cash exhibit, okay? So what are the basic terms of the sale? Ebony, I'm gonna mute you for 2 seconds, okay? What are the terms of the sale, which is in the purchase and sale? How is it going to get paid for, which is generally VA, FHA, conventional, or cash, right? Or like USDA, but I've never done one of those in 15 plus years. And then the disclosures, right? So that would be generally the seller's property disclosure statement, which is completed by the seller, or yeah, by the seller, and or the community association disclosure. So if the home is part of an HOA where there's bylaws and rules and regulations and dues and that kind of thing, then you have a community association disclosure. So again, purchase and sale, the money document, and the disclosures. Okay. If the home was built prior to 1978, you need a lead-based paint disclosure. Okay. And then the part of the offer, which is not really part of the offer, but something you really need to make sure is in place, is the brokerage agreement, right? So if you have a listing, you obviously need an exclusive seller listing agreement. And if you're representing a buyer, prior to sending in that offer, you need to have one of 2 documents signed. Hang on. You need to have one of 2 documents signed, either the customer acknowledgement form, which basically puts everyone on record that you are not my client, you are my customer, or the buyer brokerage agreement, which is the document that makes you a client rather than a customer. Follow that? So that's
Yes,
the basic. Sorry?
I do, but when you say the customer, like
What's the difference between a customer and a client?
well, I know the ministerial duties and all of that. Yeah.
All right, let me give you a good way to explain it, okay? So this is the way I always would present the buyer brokerage agreement. And I will teach the consumer about whether they're going to be a customer or whether they're going to be a client. I do it in the following way, okay? So we would have our buyer seminar, okay, our buyer consultation. So I'm learning more about their desires, their needs, the type of house they want, how they're going to put it together, what their motivation is, that kind of thing, right? I'm explaining to them how I work, right? Here's how I want you to communicate with me. Here's who I want you to speak to about the mortgage. You know, here's some stuff going on in the marketplace. Like, here's how you're going to be successful, right? We're not submitting offers for 60% of list price. This isn't 2009, right? You know, I'm helping them understand the marketplace, how to be successful. I'm talking to them about multiple offers because more than likely they're going to encounter that. I'm going to talk to them about how they have to act quickly because they're going to feel like they're being rushed through the process, and quite frankly, they are. And if you don't want to participate in that, you're going to struggle. Okay, so right now, while there's no pressure, I'm going to make sure you understand how this is going to go, right? It's kind of like you go into the amusement park and you go in a roller coaster. And if you're a little kid, you kind of want to know that there's a part of the roller coaster where it's going to get really dark, right? It's like somebody, they need to know if there's something that's a little unusual, or they have to behave in a certain way throughout the process or in certain parts of the process. It's going to go over better if they understand what's coming. Make sense? So I always got in the habit when I was on the phone with people of ending the conversation with saying something similar to this, right? So John, here's what to expect next. Here's what's going to happen next. You're going to get this email and then you're going to do this. You're going to get this piece of paper, then I'm going to want you to sign it. What's next is you're going to read through this and you're going to give all the documents to the lender. Do you have any questions? Great. Never end a conversation without helping them understand what you're going to do for them next or what to expect next. Okay. Make sense? So now I deliver, and I didn't always, I'll be honest, I didn't always do the buyer consultation on the front end. By the time I got more serious about it, Pam was doing most of the buyers anyway. So I didn't, that really wasn't the way I ran it oftentimes. But what I would do is I'd bring a copy of a blank buyer brokerage agreement to them. And I would say, generally at the end of the meeting, I'd say, so I want to share this document with you. This is a document from the Georgia Association of Realtors. Okay. The purpose of this document is, you could think of it as kind of like a loyalty agreement. Okay. Now, I want to work for you, and this is the way that you show me that you're going to be exclusive to me. Now, I expect to earn that. And so I'm not going to ask you to sign it today. Okay. But I do want to spend a moment helping you understand what it means and why it's important. Okay. So according to license law today, as this document is unsigned, you are what's called my customer. Okay. When you're my customer, according to license law, so I'd reference that several times. So it was legitimizing what I was saying. I mean, I'm not full of it. This is the real, right? But I'm helping them understand that I'm not just like asking for their commitment because I got nothing better to do. I'm asking for their commitment because I'm trying to follow the rules, right? So when you are my customer, the state of Georgia says that I'm only supposed to do what's called ministerial duties for you, or ministerial tasks for you. Examples of ministerial tasks are basically things that I can do with my hands and my feet, right? You want to know what the tax records are. You want to know what school district this is in. You want to know how big it is, when it was last sold, you know, what the HOA fees are, what the taxes are, that kind of stuff. Essentially things you could do yourself, for lack of a better way to put it. If you want to be my client, where now I have a fiduciary responsibility to protect you, right? That's when this document needs to be signed, and that's when you would become my client. Okay. Then every bit of my energy is designed to make this simple and easy, and make sure you're protected, and make sure you get all of the care and candor that you need, okay, to be successful here. Now, just so you know, this document can be terminated by either of us at any time. So in some respects, it's going to feel fairly symbolic. However, it does have its place in license law. Now, if they're interviewing other agents and their agent, because I've now referenced license law, and they're like, ooh, I want to stay legal and I don't want to do anything weird, right? If this other buyer's agent doesn't discuss this, or doesn't discuss it in as much detail as I have, then subconsciously they're thinking this guy might not be, or this woman might not be as professional. Make sense? Like, if you went to the chiropractor for the first time and they had you fill out a bunch of stuff about, have you had an injury here? Have you had an injury here? Have you had an injury here? Then you're going to feel protected. If they're like, hop on the table, let me crack you a little bit, you're gonna be like, whoa, don't you want to know if I've had like soldier surgery or not? You see what I'm saying? You see how this business got virtually nothing to do with houses? Right?
But I guess what I'm struggling with as well, let's just say that you and that person, you continue as a customer.
Okay, so eventually they're going to ask you, Ebony, for something that they really need to have a client relationship to be asking.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then, so you might say, so I'm going to, let me finish that one thought and I'll come back to that, okay? So what I'd like for you to do, Ebony, is to take this home with you, read it over, let me know if you have any questions. It explains some of your duties to me and my duties to you. It can be terminated at any time, with or without reason, right? If ultimately you find that we're not a good match and you don't want to work with me anymore, you just notify me in writing. There's no penalty or anything like that. We just go our separate ways, okay? This way I know that you're focused on working, that we're a team, that we're working through this process together, okay? And 99 times out of 100, they'd fax it to me that night. Yeah, fax, we used to have those things, right? So if by chance they didn't sign it, then I'd bring it up the next time we were together. I'd never push too hard. I'd just say, hey, did you get a chance to look at that? Any questions? Oh yeah, I meant to sign it. Sorry about that. Let me sign it right now. You see what I'm saying? It's probably more like an overthought. If they're like, I'm not signing this, say, Well, that's fine. I understand. You know, when I get inquiries from you and all the other people that I'm working with, I want to address your needs immediately. But the people that are going to get my attention first are the people that have committed to working with me, right? So, is there anything that you're hung up on or you want to discuss that would that's standing in the way of us getting together on this, right? It's kind of like this attitude of like, look, if you're going to dump me, just dump me. But no beating around the bush here. Just give me the news. Let's move on. See what I'm saying? And honestly, 99 times out of 100, they're going to sign it. Okay. If you explain it properly, they'll sign it. Okay. So does that address your question?
Yes, but let's just say through the whole transaction, okay. Let's just say that it's you're on the listing side of it. They never signed the contract, at all. But
Whoa. The listing side, you can't market the place until you have a listing.
If you have a listing anyway, okay. So let me stick with my original thought.
Well,
Okay.
and also, like, if they say I'm not signing this, but write up an offer, if you're going to write an offer for them, they have to sign either the buyer brokerage agreement or the customer acknowledgement page. So they got to tell you right off the bat, hey, you're my customer or you're my client. You got to sign something.
Okay, that was the missing part. Thank you.
Okay, so let's regroup. You got your purchase and sale agreement, which is going to discuss the basic terms. We'll pull that up in a second. Okay, then we have our money document, which is either the all cash exhibit, FHA, VA, conventional. Those are the most common money documents. Then you have all your disclosure documents. The most common one, of course, is the seller's property disclosure. And if the home was built prior to 1978, the lead-based paint disclosure. Okay, and if the home is in a community with an HOA, where there's fees and bylaws and rules and regulations and that kind of thing, you're going to need to have a community association disclosure. Okay, there are some other smaller, less common disclosures. These would be things like if the home is in unincorporated DeKalb County, there's a document on whether the toilets or the water systems are low flow or not, right? That's something that is a part of a disclosure. Like, in order for DeKalb County, unincorporated DeKalb County, to turn on your water, you need to prove, unless the home was part of a foreclosure or like an inheritance sale, then you basically have to prove that the water features in the home are low flow, like the sinks and the toilets and that kind of thing. That's something the inspector can test while they're there, or you have to hire a plumber to come out and certify it, right? So you'll learn some of these little weird things as we go along, right? But that's the basic structure of the contract. Make sense?
Can I ask a question real quick, or just get clarification?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, unless I'm like, just tell me if I'm wrong in what I'm thinking. So from what I was thinking was that the only time you would write up an offer for a customer would be if you're representing the seller and you're writing up the offer for them, because if you weren't representing the seller, if the customer was like a buyer, wouldn't that be implied agency if you're writing up an offer for them?
Well, the customer acknowledgement form clarifies that. It says, these are the tasks that I can do for you, and these are the tasks that I cannot do for you.
But I didn't
If
think
you have a customer relationship, I mean, I'll be honest, I've never had a customer relationship. Oh wait, I did one time out of 300-400 closings or something, right? So it's very rare. Okay. But because sometimes they're like, oh, well, I don't want to be your client because I want to save money on the commission or something, right? Well, the commission is paid to the listing broker anyway, and it has nothing to do with whether the buyer's agent is going to earn money or not, or there is even a buyer's agent, right? The listing agreement says the commission is 6%, and if there is a buyer's broker, they will receive X% of it. Not, if there is not a buyer broker, then the fee is now 3%. So if an unrepresented buyer comes and buys a listed home, more than likely the listing agent's going to get paid twice.
Okay.
But I'm sorry,
John?
but just to clarify that question, just to make sure I have the question right. So you're saying if you're the seller's agent, you can write up an offer for a customer client, for a customer buyer?
I mean, if they're unrepresented, then yeah, there's no one else left to do
As
it.
the seller's agent?
Well, I mean, let me come back to that question because there's a really important point to make.
I'm sorry.
If
Okay,
somebody
I
is
got the
a
question right.
customer, no, you're fine. You're fine. If somebody's your customer, you're basically filling in the blanks.
Okay.
What would you like me to put here? What would you like me to put here? What would you like me to put here? And the second they say, well, what does that mean? Sorry, you'll have to go consult an attorney for that.
Okay.
What's typical? What should I put there? I'm filling in the blanks here, sir.
Okay.
You just tell me what you want to put in there, right?
And this is,
So like
your role as a seller agent also. So you're the seller agent now doing these ministerial duties
for the buyer.
for the buyer. Okay.
Now, not to make it any more confusing, but be careful with the wording because a seller's agent is also referred to as a listing agent. A selling agent is oftentimes is the word for a buyer's agent. So be careful. Seller's agent implies the agent that the seller has hired, and that agent is oftentimes called the listing agent. The buyer's agent is the agent the buyer has hired, and the paperwork calls them oftentimes the selling agent. Not to make this any more confusing than it already is. Okay? So let's go to some purchase and sale stuff, okay? Does that answer your question, by the way?
Yes.
John and Heather?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Let me do a little, did somebody ask a question here? Bad connection. Okay. 1 sec, I'm gonna share my screen.
Can I ask a question while you're doing that?
Yep.
Okay, so if you're the listing agent and then the buyer is the customer and they never get represented, does that mean that you get the full 6%?
According to the listing agreement, it does, but that doesn't necessarily mean that things can't be renegotiated, right? If that's the case, you may have a seller that says, whoa, 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 you're gonna make $25,000 on this? I'd like you to take less commission, right?
Pay it
And
anyway.
sometimes we end up doing things that, we might not do otherwise, right? Hang on 1 second. Let me try to figure out why I can't see you guys. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you. I can see you.
You can see me? Can you see the sales
I
contract
can see your
there?
screen now. I can't see the contract yet, though.
All right, it's saying it's not responding. It usually takes a moment.
It's thinking. It's doing a little spinny wheel thing.
Okay. So Ebony, to make sure you're clear on that, basically what's going to happen is the seller's probably going to come back and say, whoa, 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 I don't want you making all that kind of money, right? To which I remember I happened to be helping one time a seller. I was in the process of, okay, now we should be good, right?
I see it.
Okay, I was in the process of helping a guy who was going to be selling his home in Sandy Springs. We were probably going to sell around 400,000. And I was also in the process of helping a buyer buy a home in Sandy Springs, probably right around that price too. Turns out the buyer and seller that I was working with knew each other. And the second that they found out that that home was available, I got the call that says, hey, rather than you getting paid $25,000 to help us both do what we want to do, how about we pay you 1% to write it up for us? And I'm like, well, shit, I guess that's what we're doing. right? Now, at that kitchen table, it was very awkward because I was the customer, or both of them were customers. I don't advise this. This was the toughest $4,400 I've ever made in my entire life. Okay. But I had an opportunity to continue to build some relationships, and I did get paid, right? But at the kitchen table, I'm like, what would you like me to put here? What would you like me to put here? Right? It was very, they were like, why can't you talk more? I'm like, because you guys aren't, like, I have to be careful here. Like, this is how I feed my family, right? I'm not breaking the rules for you. I'm already losing $24,000. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So here are some basics of the purchase and sale. Ebony, did you have a specific question about the end? You were asking kind of a weird question earlier. I just want to make sure we hit that before I have to wrap up today. What was your specific question?
I apologize about that. So Melba was saying something yesterday with the last page. Hold on. Where it says the binding agreement date.
Yeah.
And she lost me a little bit because she said two things. She's just like, you can't sign it until after it's reached through the other party. So after you hear the swoosh, then you can go ahead and sign it. But it's just like, okay, well, is it attached already?
What is the swoosh?
Oh, her computer makes a swoosh sound. So she said, so that's how she referenced it. Like, after I hear the swoosh of my computer, that's when I know that it was received, by the other agent, and then I can sign it, but I can't sign it before then. And then she also said that you can take the first, I think it's, leave the last page off, send everything, and then after you send it, then take the last page, sign it, and send it.
That is a hell of a lot of work. I don't know that that's necessary. Here's what I would do. Okay. Let me cover this one piece real fast. Can you guys see this part? And then I'll address your question while I'm right here. So under page 6 of 8 right here, section 6, this is where you would check all the documents that are included in the purchase and sale, right? Like the lead-based paint, the FHA, the conventional loan exhibit. If the property is a condominium, it needs a condominium resale purchase and sale agreement, or exhibit. The legal description, the survey, and all that stuff. That's where you would check it if it's applicable. Okay, that's where you would put your special stipulations. Remember, if something says additional special stipulations are or are not attached, check one of the boxes because it either is attached or it's not attached, right? So don't leave things blank. By the way, when you're writing an offer, it's so important that you do this properly, not only to keep yourself out of trouble, but to protect your client. And you're also showing the other agent what it's like going to be to work with you, right? And especially nowadays where they probably have their pick. If you got a really messy offer with, like, the legal description is titled A on the page, but B on the contract, and it's just messy and unorganized, they're like, this is messy and unorganized. I bet working with this person is going to be messy and unorganized. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Here's how I would do that. And Melba and I don't agree on much, to be honest, but here is how I would do it. Okay. Let's say I'm submitting the offer, and let's just say for the ease of this discussion, they're going to agree to it completely. 100% of everything that I have submitted, they're going to agree to. Okay. They're going to sign. Let's say I'm the buyer. So the buyer's signatures are already on here. Just as a quick note, the contact information for the buyer is none of their damn business. Okay. So on the buyer brokerage agreement, that's an internal document. You're not sending that to the other party. Okay. You really should have the contact information of the buyer on that, right? Because that's like how to give notice and these kind of things. On the purchase and sale agreement, I will not be putting my buyer's contact information on there. I do not want anyone speaking to my buyer except for me. 100% of all news my buyer will find out will be delivered by me and only me. I do not want the seller calling the buyer. I don't want the other agent calling the buyer. That's my job. So all you get is their name and their signature. Clear? Okay. Did I get a clear from everybody? That's very important.
It's clear.
Right? Hey, John, you submitted an offer on this property. Why don't we cut our agents out and deal with this privately?
Right. Right.
You do not want that. Okay. So what I would do is when they sign it, the contract is now binding. That's what Melba is referring to as the swoosh. Okay. So it really used to be, and I always understood it in the following way, where then the seller would send back the signed contract and the other party would fill in the binding agreement date. Okay. The binding agreement date is the day in which the parties have come to an agreement. The following day is day one for the purposes of all the counts. Okay. Binding agreement day would be, let's say, Monday. Day one would be Tuesday. Okay. Now, that way, I think that it's as clean as possible. When you start separating the contract, and it just gets a little messy. I don't think I would do that personally. But the seller also could then say, well, the seller, the listing agent would then see that their client has signed the paperwork, and then they could go in. And what I have, to be honest, I haven't messed with DocuSign a whole lot, but what we used to do in DocuSign or .loop was the second party signed, then we downloaded that copy, turned it into a PDF, re-uploaded it, and then added the binding agreement date. And then I would send that out to all parties, at which point it is now officially binding. Okay, so either party could fill in the binding agreement date, but once you start sending 6 pages of the contract and then send the other one, and then somebody's got to go merge the file, it's just messy, right? So I would have that conversation with the other agent to say, would you fill in the binding agreement date for me? Or I'll send it back and I'll fill it in.
So I'm confused a little bit. Which party did you say fills in the binding agreement portion? Is it the listing agent or the buyer's agent?
Well, the truth is it could be either party. And the reason why I say that is because we never know whether the buyer's proposal back to the seller will be the one that's finally accepted, or whether the proposal that the seller sends to the buyer would be the one that's finally accepted. You see what I'm saying? So like there could be 1 round of back and forth. There could be 1.5 rounds of back and forth. You see what I'm saying? Okay.
Thank you. That makes sense. That helps.
Okay. So much of the meat and potatoes of this buyer's agent or buyer's, I can't talk today. The purchase and sale agreement is covered on page 1. And then the rest of all the pages are basically split up. All of the little one-liners that you're supposed to fill out, they describe what it actually means. So if you guys have not read through this contract, I'm going to encourage you to print out a copy and read it. And if there's something you don't understand, then I want you to put a little mark on it. Ebony, you are just making me so proud. You got the MREA book, you got your sample contract, man. Okay, I want you to put a little mark on it and then ask me what it means, okay? Because you will never get paid unless you fill out one of these, right? So you better, this is like day 1 type stuff, okay? So we want you to understand this very, very clearly. Okay, there's also a few videos in the YouTube library on mock offers. There's also a few videos on descriptions, descriptions on, like an explanation of pretty thorough explanation of what the financing conventional loan exhibit is and the FHA loan exhibit is and how to fill out the listing agreement. Like I've gone through all that on video in the past. So that would also be a good resource for you. All that is contained within the YouTube channel. Okay. Obviously, if you have any questions on that, let me know and we'll get you the information you need. Okay. In general, the offer date is where you put the offer date, right? All dates, by the way, are calendar dates unless otherwise specified. So they would include weekends, federal holidays, any of that kind of thing, okay, unless otherwise stated. They are calendar days, okay? You put in the contact or the property information, the property address, the legal description. The legal description is basically how the county identifies this property. I generally would go to email either our friends at Campbell and Brannon or our friends at O'Kelly and Sorahan and say, I would like the legal description for 123 Hill Street. The fastest way for them to get it to you is by telling them the address, the county that the property is in, and the seller's name if you know it. Okay, if they have those 3 pieces of information, they can get that. Thank you. What is that? Oh, thanks. Oh, cool. Look what I just got. It's this social equity t-shirt. They must have heard our call this morning. Okay. Where was I? What was I saying?
With the legal description.
Oh, yeah. Legal
The
description.
address, county, and seller's.
Yeah, if you give them those 3 pieces, you'll get it instantly. They can find it instantly. Okay. I tended to include that as Exhibit A rather than like I would check 1B1 attached as exhibit here too. That way I wouldn't have to risk any mistakes in filling out this stuff, right?
Oh.
That is the thing that's like land lot this and district that and plat page number that and that's what the legal description is. It names the county, it names the neighborhood if there's one. It's basically how does the county identify that property. Okay. Next is the purchase price. Then
Hold on, I have a
closing.
question about that.
Yeah.
So with the legal description, who gets to choose the attorney? And if it's a preferred attorney and I need a legal description, do I have to go to that attorney or can I go to an attorney of my selection, even if that's not the one that was agreed that we wanted to
So
use?
asking them to give you the legal description is really just clerical help, right?
Oh.
I do my suggestion to you would be to don't like ask one attorney for all the legal descriptions and give all your business to the other one, right? Like the generally the buyer will pick the closing attorney because the buyer is the one creating the offer. And normally speaking, that's not generally something that the parties will fight over too much, right? It is negotiable, of course, but generally there's other things that they're going to try to negotiate, right? Like the closing costs and the closing date and the sales price and that kind of thing. So generally speaking, the buyer will pick the attorney. Our partners are very, very supportive of us. You're not mandated to use them, but my advice to you would be to, if you're going to ask people to do stuff for you for free, then give them a shot, right? Don't like ask Campbell and Brannon for all the legal descriptions and then give your closing attorney business to somebody else, right?
Absolutely. I think I was confused on who chooses it. So now that I know that the buyers pick the attorneys, that kind of clarified all of it. Because I wouldn't, that means,
honestly, it's akin to saying the buyer picks the sales price because really what's happening is they're filling out the offer. So their first choice for attorney, they're going to pick who they want to be the attorney, just like they pick out what day they want to close or how much they want to pay. Then they send it over to the seller for them to choose whether they're agreeable to that. Chances are they're not going to be agreeable to every term, in which case they're going to tell you which terms they're not agreeable to. What I'm suggesting is rarely is the closing attorney something that's fought over. So the buyer doesn't necessarily pick, they make a suggestion. Just like, I know I'm picking at your words here, but words are very important, right? So that again, that would be akin to saying the buyer picks the sales price. No, they make a suggestion about the sales price, and then they see if the seller is willing, right? And I mean, I probably represented 300-400 buyers in my time, and I can only remember one time specifically where I sent off an offer and they agreed to it verbatim. And I felt like the biggest idiot when that happened. I was like, damn, I should have started lower. You know what I'm saying? So almost all the time, there's going to be some back and forth. Make sense? Okay. I do have an appointment at 1 that I need to run to, but I'll real quickly go over 1 or 2 more things here. Please make sure you understand what closing costs are. Okay, read this contract. The closing cost, both parties, we'll end on this, okay? Both parties are going to have closing costs. The seller's closing costs are largely the commissions. The only other fees that a seller will generally pay are any wire fees to pay off their mortgage and any recording fees that need to be recorded to show that the mortgage has been paid off and to show that the home is now not theirs, right? The buyer's closing costs are essentially all fees that are associated with buying the home. That would be like title search, owner's title insurance, recording fees, attorney's fees, document prep fees, post-closing fees, all that kind of stuff. That's all itemized on a buyer's loan doc, right? And all costs associated with obtaining financing to buy the home. That would be like the money that you pay to the lender for them to do their job, and for lender's title insurance and that kind of stuff. All that together is considered a closing cost. There's also something called escrows. You have to establish your escrow accounts when you purchase a home, more often than not, right? The escrow accounts are basically how much money are you going to be contributing to each month, so that when the tax bill comes and the homeowner's insurance bill comes, there's an appropriate amount of money in that account to pay that bill. Okay, so depending on what time of year you close and depending on when the tax bill is due, those numbers will fluctuate, right? So you have to establish, like for example, if I was to close last month and the tax bill is due in mid-November, I'm almost putting an entire year's worth of taxes into that escrow account. But if I close on December 1st and the tax bill is just paid, I'm just putting like 2 months of money in the escrow account, right? So you'll get the total closing cost, make sure it includes the escrows that the buyer would be expected to pay, so that you either ask for it or you make sure the buyer understands that it's going to be due. So if you don't have the money, right, you need to find the money somewhere, or we need to ask the seller to pay for it. Does all that make sense?
I'm sorry, Bill, real quick question. When does that closing cost disclosure need to be provided to your client?
That is generally provided to them prior to them making an offer.
Okay.
Right. Well, let me rephrase that. This is going to sound harsh. If they don't supply that to the buyer, they're not my buyer's lender. Okay. I was pretty firm about this. Like, look, I want things done my way, and you're either on the team or you're not on the team. Right. So second I knew who my buyer's lender was, I called him, and if I didn't already know him, hey, I'm Bill. This is what I'd like for you to do for me. Right. I want you to send me a loan exhibit, or what's called a loan worksheet, or a loan worksheet or financing worksheet. A lot of different names for it. It basically is a breakdown of what all the closing costs are, because I'm going to go show my buyer what he wants right away, and we're going to write an offer. So I ain't got time to chase you down over the weekend for what I need now. So I need you to give it to me now. So that way I know that if the taxes fluctuate, I can calculate that on my own. I need to know how much you need so that I can leave you alone for a week and go find this buyer a home. See what I'm saying?
Got it. Got
So
it.
I know that when I'm describing some of this stuff, I sound pretty harsh. But the truth of the matter is we are the choreographer for all of the players involved in this transaction. and I want A players on my team. And therefore I intend to be an A player, right? But if you're going to be loosey-goosey with paperwork and you're going to be loosey-goosey with getting back to me, you don't get to be on the team. You follow me? I've had a lot of lenders in my time, and some of them are absolutely incredible. And some of them are terrible, right? And if I think I'm working with a terrible lender, I'm going to call the buyer and say, hey, I think we got a terrible lender here. I asked for this document 3 days ago and I hadn't got it. Is your dude dead? Is he in jail? Like, what the hell's going on? I mean, literally, like, I wanted to have that type of reputation when I was dealing with my people, whether it be my vendor partners or my sales associates or my buyers and sellers. It's like, look, if I tell you I'm going to do something and I don't do it, you please call the cops. Something's going on. Check the morgue. Something's wrong. Okay. And when you have that type of reputation, people want to work with you. Like, oh my gosh, thank you so much, Bill. I'm so excited to work with you. You know, we got these 12 other offers, but they all can't fill out their paperwork. So just send me this and you got the deal. I'm like, cool. See you at the closing table. See what I'm saying? Life becomes a whole lot easier when you're good. Okay, so everyone's homework assignment is to print this off and read it and tell me if you have any questions. Fair? All right. You guys have a wonderful weekend. Donna will be hosting the Monday call, and I will see you guys on Tuesday.
Moving. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. So long,
All right.
everyone.
See y'all.
Bye.
Okay, hold on.